This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Big, beautiful breakup. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast.
Today it's about a man named Elon.
The public feud getting worse between President Trump and Elon Musk, the world's richest man. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell.
The billionaire blow-up is upending one of the most visible relationships in the president's inner circle.
The war of words follows Musk's recent criticism of the commander-in-chief for that multi-trillion-dollar spending bill on Capitol Hill. That's where we find Fox's Alexandria Hoff.
As part of the hours-long back and forth, Musk posted, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election," followed by such ingratitude.
Correspondent Nancy Cordes with CBS News.
This fight has now gone galactic, with President Trump threatening to yank billions in government contracts from the Elon Musk company SpaceX. And Musk is saying that in response, he's going to decommission the Dragon spacecraft, which is used to transport astronauts to the International Space Station.
Musk has since walked back those comments, even as President Trump tries to downplay the drama. Charlie Kirk with Turning Point USA.
It's a tough thing to watch, this public feud. I actually think they're going to reconcile at some point, though, because deep down, I would like to believe they both want the same thing.
Kirk says the country and the world are much better off when Musk and Trump get along. The two may try soon to bury the hatchet. The May jobs report went public this morning. Employers adding 139,000 new jobs to their payrolls last month. The overall unemployment rate remained unchanged at 4.2%, while hiring in May did slow from April. It was higher than what economists were expecting. Consequently, stocks on Wall Street are much higher today. Russia launched 40 missiles and 400 drones at targets in Ukraine overnight. Correspondent Ramia Inocencio.
Most were shot down, but cruise missiles did slam into a hotel in Ukraine's northwest town of Lutsk, only about 50 miles from NATO member Poland's border. But Kyiv was hit the worst.
President Trump compared the fighting to two school-aged bullies.
Sometimes you see two young children fighting like crazy. They hate each other and they're fighting in a park. And you try and pull them apart. They don't want to be pulled. Sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while and then pulling them apart.
The president commenting on the war from the White House last night. President Trump says a trade deal with China is on track. He spoke for more than an hour yesterday with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
He invited me to China and I invited him here. We both accepted. So I'll be going there with the First Lady at a certain point.
Also going there at a certain point is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He's headed to Beijing to head up trade talks between the world's two largest economies. Boulder, Colorado terror suspect Mohammed Solomon back in court today. The 45-year-old Egyptian national is facing 118 criminal counts, including 28 counts of attempted murder.
If the defendant's convicted and those counts run or those sentences run consecutive, that would be 48 years in state prison for each of the 14 victims, which comes to 672 years.
Boulder County District Attorney Michael Doherty says over a dozen people were hurt in the anti-Semitic attack last Sunday. This Jewish American telling NBC,
"They lit Jews on fire in 2025. I mean, it's hard to for anyone to wrap their head around that."
The victims were burned by a homemade flamethrower. Solomon's wife and 5 children remain in ICE custody in Texas. President Trump's new travel ban facing legal challenges. The edict forbids foreigners from 12 countries from entering the U.S. 7 other countries face partial travel bans. Legal analyst Andrew Cherkasky.
President Trump and the executive branch, frankly, has very wide discretion and almost unilateral authority authority in those types of foreign policy decisions in order to protect our national defense.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked Trump's ban on foreign students from attending Harvard. It was in retaliation for Harvard allegedly not doing enough to combat anti-Semitism on campus. Today is the deadline for active duty transgender service members to voluntarily leave the military or risk getting kicked out. National Guard troops and reservists have another month before they have to go. The move impacts 0.2% of all members of the armed forces. The U.S. Supreme Court recently upheld the trans ban on military service. In a unanimous ruling, the Supreme Court yesterday made it easier to bring reverse discrimination lawsuits. This case has to do with an Ohio woman who was demoted from her job because she was not gay.
The court said discrimination essentially is discrimination, whether you're black or white, gay or straight.
Legal analyst Jan Crawford says this decision has bearing in 20 states. Also in a unanimous ruling, the Supreme Court Thursday upheld the tax-exempt status of Catholic charities in Wisconsin. That ruling protects the First Amendment rights of faith-based not-for-profits. In the NBA playoffs, the Pacers prove it's not over till it's over.
Halliburton looking. Halliburton driving. Pulls up. Jump shot. It's goal! With 3 touchdowns.
What a game. The Indiana Pacers staging that improbable comeback last night, Game 1 of the NBA Finals. They trailed Oklahoma City by as many as 15 points in the fourth quarter before clawing their way back. In fact, that game-winning shot by Tyrese Halliburton was the only lead Indiana had all night long. Final score 111-110. Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle.
Our guys have a real good feel for what it's all about, giving ourselves a chance, and we got fortunate, but made plays.
Game 2 is Sunday in OKC. Still to come on the Noon Report, a Friday edition. Assisted suicide in New York. Shapiro sues President Trump, and protesting AI in Ithaca.
This is meteorologist Ken McKinley. Unsettled through the afternoon with some showers around and maybe a thunderstorm or two in some spots. Temperatures for the most part in the 70s. A look at the weekend forecast is coming your way in about 10 minutes.
All right, Ken, we'll check in then. Thank you. Let's check the stories that are making news across New York and Pennsylvania. Assisted suicide legislation could be voted on as soon as Monday in the New York State Senate. The controversial measures already passed the state assembly. That medical aid in dying bill would allow the terminally ill to end their lives with the aid of a doctor. Assisted suicide activist Corinne Carey.
Medical aid in dying is more about life than it is about death. It's allowing people to live their lives fully until the very end without the worry that they'll be suffering in their last moments.
But retired medical doctor Stanley Burkowski says doctor-prescribed death is bad medicine for New York.
This is the opposite of how a doctor should treat a suffering patient. When patients are suffering, we are there to comfort them, to give them good medical care in their last days.
11 states in the District of Columbia currently permit physician-assisted suicide. Central New York Congressman John Mannion is weighing in on the public feud between President Trump and Elon Musk.
If the leader is in chaos, the classroom's in chaos. And it was only a matter of time till we were in chaos. So we've got serious issues in this country that we have to address, and we need stronger leadership to address them.
The war of words between Trump and Musk hit overdrive overnight. Victor Davis Hanson at the Hoover Institution.
The only people who are happy are the left. They can't decide whom they hate more, but they hate both of them.
Radio personality Dana Lash.
Let's be honest, these two, they have supersized egos. It's a clash of the titans, and everybody else can get hurt in the process.
Musk suggested on social media last night that Trump should be impeached. Trump is threatening to cancel Musk's government contracts. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is suing the Trump administration. He says the White House has reneged on a 3-year, $13 million contract. That contract pays PA farmers to produce the food that's used at food banks.
I got a pretty good track record when I take Donald Trump to court. We're going to win this, and we're going to get our money back for the
good people of Pennsylvania.
The government contract with Pennsylvania farmers was signed just before President Biden left office. New York's junior U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand has introduced a bill in Congress that would speed up the production of low-cost medications, which senior citizens rely on a daily basis.
9 in 10 adults age 65 or older rely on prescription drugs to manage health problems like diabetes, heart disease, or arthritis. But far too many can't afford the out-of-pocket costs. The Smart Prices Act will stop Big Pharma from price gouging our seniors.
Gillibrand says Americans spent $98 billion last year out of pocket to pay for their prescription meds. School teachers in Ithaca, New York are calling for action to protect against the ever-growing influence of artificial intelligence. Dave Isley with the Ithaca Teachers Association wants his city to lead the way in preventing the outsourcing of teaching jobs to AI.
This becomes a model for our state to follow. We can become leaders when it comes to, again, putting the humanity first in education. And I know that our siblings, our union siblings from across the state are watching us. And if we can get this win, it becomes something that they can then take and say, hey, look, it happened in Ithaca. We can do it here, too.
The teachers staged a sit-in yesterday to draw attention to the dangers associated with artificial intelligence. An iconic part of Erie, Pennsylvania's waterfront is out of town getting some much-needed repairs. Family Life's Mark Webster explains.
Yeah, the Brig Niagara has arrived in Maine, where it will undergo a $5 million restoration project. The major overhaul of the historic reproduction vessel is being done at Bristol Marine's shipyard in Boothbay Harbor and includes everything from structural repairs and installing new engines and electrical gear to replacing hull planking and a paint job. All of that should be complete in time for it to be back in Erie to take part in celebrations next summer, marking America's 250th birthday. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Thank you, Mark. A growing number of New York counties are banning a controversial farming practice where sewage sludge is spread on fields as fertilizer. State Agriculture Secretary Richard Ball.
We have looked at those applications traditionally as good agricultural practices, but now that we're able in the scientific world to analyze all kinds of things and learning what we've been learning over the last 10 years, I think we need to make sure that we're not contributing to any problems anywhere.
The problems seem to be associated with the prevalence of so-called forever chemicals. Many people in Steuben County who live next to fields where sludge is spread, those people have reported drinking water contamination. High tech is making a huge difference down on the farm. Albion, New York dairy farmer Jaden Neal is a recent robotics grad at the Rochester Institute of Technology. He's put that college degree to good use when it comes to a basic farming task, keeping the cows' teats and udders clean.
Existing tools have brushes and belts and contact the cows, and that can cause cross-contamination issues, and it's also just rougher on the cows.
Jaden's solution is called the Vortex. It's a 3D printed lightweight udder washing machine. His dad, Jody, tells Wham News.
As farmers, we use automation to improve our efficiency, find ways to make our jobs easier. More cows per worker, more milk shipped per worker, just ways to increase profitability. Actually, even also for the health of the cow, too.
Jaden Neal's patented the Vortex and has formed a business called Udderways. He's hoping to sell his alternative washing device to other dairy farms near where he lives. We've got sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the Indiana Pacers fans just may need to invest in pacemakers if their team keeps their hearts pounding like they did last night in Oklahoma City. Tyrese Halliburton nailed another last-second game-winning shot, and it lifted the Pacers over the Thunder 111-110. It was Indiana's first lead of the game. The Pacers came back from 15 points down in the fourth quarter to steal a 1-0 series lead in these NBA Finals. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a game-high 38 points in a losing effort for the Thunder. To baseball, the Yankees won the rubber game of their series with Cleveland 4-0. Cody Bellinger went 2 for 4, including a 2-run home run. He drove in 3 of the Yankees' 4 runs. The Dodgers rallied with 3 runs in the 8th inning to take down the Mets 6-5. What made the loss even more painful for New York? LA's 3 runs in the 8th, all unearned. Ouch. The Phillies endured a 9-1 thumping at the hands of the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto had 5 different players collect 2 hits or more in the blowout. The Pirates also lost their game against the Astros 8-2. O'Neal Cruz drove in both of Pittsburgh's runs. Around the league, the White Sox edged Detroit in 10, 3-2. The A's beat up Minnesota 14-3. Seattle dropped a 4-3 decision to Baltimore, and Tampa Bay edged Texas 4-3. In the National League, Arizona outslugged Atlanta 11-10. The Cubs 7-1 winners over the Nats. The Giants squeaked past the Padres 3-2. And in interleague play, St. Louis and Kansas City split a pair. St. Louis winning 6-5 in the first, KC 7-5 in the second. That is a look at sports.
All right, Randy, man, thank you kindly. And still to come on the Noon Report, what's unfair about the Fairness Act? 10 years of homosexual marriage and how Christians cope with Pride Month.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. In November of 2022, Anderson Lee Aldrich killed 5 people and injured 25 others in a shooting at Club Q, an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs. Aldrich, identified as non-binary, used they-them pronouns, had multiple violent encounters with law enforcement, threatened to kill Christians, and dabbled in the gay lifestyle. However, in a matter of hours after the shooting, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and multiple other news outlets and commentators implicated, either directly or indirectly, focus on the family, accusing them of creating a culture that led to this kind of violence. And a few weeks later, the campus of the ministry was vandalized with these words, quote, "Their blood is on your hands." The false accusation was based on the notion of stochastic violence, the idea that somehow saying the wrong thing about a group or a behavior can create an environment that can lead to violence. Similarly, political conservatives were also accused of stochastic violence when a homeless, mentally ill man attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer. But so far, no one's been accused of stochastic violence after Mohammed Sabri Soliman, an Egyptian-born man living in Colorado Springs illegally, threw Molotov cocktails into a group of peaceful pro-Israel demonstrators while yelling, quote, "Free Palestine." At least 12 people were burned in the attack, including a survivor of the Holocaust. After the attack, the man, who'd planned on dying that day, calmly and directly revealed that he was a committed anti-Semitic Muslim who had been planning this attack for over a year. So the very same voices that were certain that a Christian ministry that had never advocated violence at any point in all of its history was responsible for the attack on Club Q seem completely lost about related motives or responsibilities in this case. This, even though since October 2023, when Hamas militants killed nearly 1,200 Jews in Israel in a horrific attack, protesters on American streets and on college campuses have been calling for violence against Jews everywhere. Even in Colorado Springs, in fact. Colorado college students there set up a protest village, refused to go to class, chanted slogans that meant more than they probably realized. The reaction to the Boulder attack has been in large part just propaganda. Thaddeus Williams defines propaganda as offering a highly edited history that paints the most damning picture it can of a given people group and gives us a way to blame all of life's troubles on that damnable group and its members, end quote. Christians, on the other hand, are called to be discerning and to stand and defend truth anytime it is contested. But that's especially when lives are at stake. That time clearly is now. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint. Today's Breakpoint was co-authored by Bob Dittmer. For a version of this commentary that you can print and share with others, go to breakpoint.org.
Thank you, John. Outside we go. Ken McKinley.
Good afternoon. Unsettled as we head through the afternoon with a good deal of cloud cover across the region and some showers from time to time. Maybe a thunderstorm, could be a brief downpour in some spots. Temperatures for the most part in the 70s. The showers will be winding down overnight tonight, ending in most areas except for far eastern Pennsylvania and central New York areas, where some showers may linger into the morning tomorrow. But tomorrow, for the most part, we'll see some sunshine and temperatures will make it up into the 70s. We'll have clear skies, cooler temperatures tomorrow night, and then sun giving way to clouds as we move through our Sunday. The clouds advancing from the southwest across the region. Some rain will arrive not too long after the clouds. First in western New York and western Pennsylvania, a little bit later in the day over central New York and eastern Pennsylvania.
All right, Ken, thank you. It's Friday, folks, the 6th of June, and this is the Noon Report on Family Life. This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are, as always, Michael Gear with the Pennsylvania Family Institute and Jason McGuire with New York Families. Well, gentlemen, start your engines. It is time to go. Michael, we're going to begin with you in Harrisburg. The clock is ticking on the Pennsylvania state budget, most expecting that they will miss that deadline again this year. Senate Majority Leader Joe Pittman saying there's going to be a lot of unpleasant conversations in Harrisburg over the next few weeks. What are the biggest issues holding up the budget this year?
Yeah, I can't imagine the conversations are very pleasant even right now. The overall issue is a classic conflict between those who can't resist increasing spending and those who understand that if you keep spending money that you don't have, eventually the brick wall of financial reality will hit you. But Shapiro's callous answer for the revenue shortfall is legalizing pot and expanding gambling further still. And therein lies some of the especially extremely difficult conversations that are ahead. We'll continue to fight against those two things because they are bad for Pennsylvania.
All right, we'll talk about some more things dealing with the budget in a minute. But Jason, first to Albany, a big rally again yesterday in New York State Capitol, denouncing efforts to try and legalize physician-assisted suicide in the Empire State. This has been your highest legislative priority this year. Why is this such a big deal to you personally and as a ministry? And why is this a fight worth fighting in 2025?
You know, I can't ignore the fact that when people support assisted suicide, it is a violation of the sanctity of human life. We are just discarding a life when it is uncomfortable to deal with. It is more convenient to cast it aside than it is to offer true compassion and care. So from a biblical worldview perspective, we have concerns with assisted suicide. But even if you don't share my faith, there are a lot of reasons to oppose assisted suicide, including what it does to medicine in general. We now have doctors that are healers, and we literally turn them into killers, writing these prescription drugs to terminate a person's life. That is not a place that we want to go as a culture.
Yeah. So-called family friendly, I don't know how you get family-friendly drag shows, but they billed it as that in Harrisburg this week. Michael, that rally didn't happen, thank God. It was called off, but it was supposed to show support for this thing they're calling the Fairness Act. We've talked about this bill on this program before. You have argued in the past this is perhaps the most dangerous piece of legislation ever concocted in Harrisburg, and there's been a few doozies over the years. Is the Fairness Act losing steam in Pennsylvania?
Well, we certainly hope so. As you mentioned there at the outset with this scheduled but now canceled family-friendly drag show, it's hard to think of a greater oxymoron, but it shows how amazingly brazen the LGBT lobby has become in this day and age to even propose something like that at our Capitol. But another oxymoron is this so-called Fairness Act, which is anything but fair. It creates a special protected class for individuals solely based on their sexual conduct and profile. Passage of such legislation would be absolutely unfair on Christians and Christian ministries like schools, campgrounds, churches, and more. We've been successfully fighting the Fairness Act, and we encourage folks to continue to express their concerns to lawmakers about House Bill 300.
Gotcha. Well, Jason, the U.S. Justice Department is cracking down on public schools that permit biological boys to compete in girls' sports. I know this is a huge problem in California. I got to ask you, are New York school districts starting to get get that message, don't go there or else? Or is this still a problem, transgender athletes in girls' sports in the Empire State?
Well, as we've often talked about, that pendulum swings. When something moves one direction at the federal level, there is a backlash here in a blue state like New York. And certainly on the transgender issue, we're seeing that pendulum swing. Various levels of government are responding by doubling down on the DEI, the LGBT issues, including the transgender sports issue. That is something that we are still seeing here in the Empire State, and it's evidence that we've got work to do to catch this culture up to where the rest of the country is moving.
Yeah, and Michael, hard to believe. I could not believe it's been 10 years already since the Obergefell v. Hodges decision, and if those at home aren't familiar with that, that was the decision from the Supreme Court that legalized homosexual marriage in all 50 states. Yeah. 10 years already since that tragic ruling. Since then, support for gay marriage has grown among Democrats. It's about 88% now, and it's actually dropped amongst Republicans, just 41% support. Why do you think there's such a political divide in this country when it comes to homosexual marriage?
Well, that rise in support actually followed Obergefell with Republicans and Democrats. The Republican drop has just been more recently, but the changes that happen after a ruling like that show the power of law in politics and changing cultural mores and views. And listeners might remember that in 2008, voters in California, yes, California, voted to keep marriage the union of one man and woman at the ballot box. But of course, since the Obergefell decision, public opinion nationally swung in favor of so-called same-sex marriage. But the change I think we're seeing now with Republicans, and I think this will go more broadly, is that Americans are waking up to the implications of that decision, including what the real value and purpose of marriage is, and they're waking up to the aggressiveness of the LGBT movement and its political allies to push this ideology on our kids, telling them they can change their sex, that sexual experimentation is a good thing. All of that came in like a flood after Obergefell, and people are just getting tired of it.
Yeah, that slippery slope really showing itself there. Jason, June is Gay Pride Month, and the polls are showing you every year we sit down as a news department and say, how do we tackle this topic this year? But it seems to me, at least, that fewer corporations are actively participating in gay pride events. They may still fly the flag, but as far as where money is, they're pulling back a little bit on the marketing merchandise associated with this month-long event. Why do you think that rainbow flag and all that it symbolizes may be losing some of its luster in corporate America?
Well, I think in so many issues on politics, culture, what's going on in the world around us is you follow the dollars. And many voters have been voting with their dollars when it comes to corporations. They're looking at what is going on at the Targets and the various boycotts have been going around in the last few years. Tractor Supply, other companies are backing away from some of the DEI. And I think a lot of corporations are saying it no longer makes fiscal sense for us to pursue some of these endeavors. So they certainly are pulling back, and you're seeing less of an influence in the so-called Pride Month during this month of June you have in previous years. And I think it's an important reminder that, we do have say. Even when we feel like we don't have a lot of political ability in various forms of government right now, here in New York in particular, I'm thinking there are other things that can be done to speak to your values, and how you use your dollars is an important piece of that.
Yeah, I think when Target a couple of years ago, you guys might remember, had the transgender clothing for children, I think that's when a lot of folks said, okay, that's enough. That's the line we won't cross. So interesting thoughts there. Well, Michael, there is a threat to school choice in the Commonwealth, and it's in the form of House Bill 1500. This would slash funding to cyber charter schools by 40%. Explain a little bit why this is a bad idea in the House.
Yeah, this falls under the no good deed goes unpunished with the view of some of the people in the legislature. The good deed being opportunities for parents to choose something other than their local public schools. In the form of cyber charter schools, kids are schooled at home through teachers that are doing the teaching online. And hundreds of thousands of families across Pennsylvania have chosen this option. It fits their family well. Kids are getting a great education. And because, though, it takes some money away from the brick and mortar public schools in the local local school districts, they're advocating for these cuts, and that would take us in the wrong direction. We're hopeful we can defeat it.
And then last but not least, Jason, New York Governor Kathy Hochul now facing a primary challenge next year from her own Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado, the Lieutenant Governor who wants to be governor. Be very interesting to hear your thoughts on this. Does he run to the right or to the left of her? And what does this all of a sudden new primary challenge say about the 2026 gubernatorial campaign?
Yeah, it's interesting to watch. There's been some bad blood between Governor Kathy Hochul and Antonio Delgado, the lieutenant governor, for some time. But to go out there and to declare your candidacy is a whole nother level. It appears that Mr. Delgado is running to the left of Governor Hochul, at least at this point, trying to win some of that progressive base in a primary race. And I think it shows us that many Democrats feel that Governor Kathy Hochul is very vulnerable in 2026.
All right, that'll have to be the last word this week. But if you have questions about any of the issues discussed today on Capital Connection, read all about it online. Michael, where can folks contact you?
PAFamily.org.
Stay informed in the closing days of the New York legislative session. What's at stake? Jason McGuire, where can folks contact you?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. The name of the program, Capital Connection, comes your way Fridays during the Noon Report. You can subscribe, listen to, and share Capital Connection along with all our original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org. Before we go, one more time to the Weather Center, Ken McKinley.
Good afternoon. Unsettled as we head through the afternoon with a good deal of cloud cover across the region and some showers from time to time. Maybe a thunderstorm, could be a brief downpour in some spots. Temperatures for the most part in the 70s. The showers will be winding down overnight tonight, ending in most areas except for far eastern Pennsylvania and central New York areas, where some showers may linger into the morning tomorrow. But tomorrow, for the most part, we'll see some sunshine and temperatures will make it up into the 70s. We'll have clear skies, cooler temperatures tomorrow night, and then sun giving way to clouds as we move through our Sunday. The clouds advancing from the southwest across the region. Some rain will arrive not too long after the clouds, first in western New York and western Pennsylvania, a little bit later in the day over central New York and eastern Pennsylvania.
All right, Ken, thank you. Finally at noon for Friday, it is National Donut Day, don't you know? Donuts. Not only is it time to celebrate deep-fried deliciousness, but it's also time to recognize the brave women who invented this new way to cook up fried dough.
It doesn't matter how you spell it, with a GH or without. National Donut Day is always the first Friday in June. The day is set aside to honor the Salvation Army's donut lassies who traveled overseas and fried the pastries in soldiers' helmets during World War I. The frontline lassies also distributed clothing and supplies, but the bonus for the soldiers was the donuts. I'm Bree Tennis.
And that's our world, the world we live in. Friday, the 6th of June. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.